the Bombers now, it's as much about the perception around them and are they going forward. Hello everyone, welcome to Eddie and Jimmy, and that Jimmy is the superstar that is Jimmy Bartel. Hello buddy.
G'day Ed, how are you?
You're looking fit.
I'm trying to keep fit. I think you and I have spoken about this. You've got to treat football season. I know we're not players anymore, but you've got to work. Yeah. You've got to keep fit because healthy body, healthy mind.
Well, in our caper, I used to always, when I was a young reporter, get off the rantan and the grog and things like that from about mid-July, early July. And when the others started to hit the wall, that's when I used to pick up the pace. That was my go.
Yeah, well, I got my ego checked the other day. I jumped in some under-18 boys football training.
Yeah.
And they saw me put the boots on. First time I've actually put my feet in boots in close to 7 years. And the smiles on their faces because they thought, we're going to show you up, old boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
how'd they go?
They had a good go at it, I'll give them the tip. My feet were pretty sore the next couple of days.
Yeah, isn't it amazing when suddenly your mind's working but your body's not answering the call anymore?
No, we went to a very slow-paced game.
See, the mind's still working a bit faster than them. Yeah, we have to. Yeah, I'm with you. I've got to get myself fit. I've been on in the paddock for the last couple of weeks. So
still sharp.
Myself right. Hey, mate, thanks to Fiji Airways, and that's why you need to look fit, because if you're going to, get up there and put the grass skirt on and hula around the pool, you got to look good over for the mid-year break if you're getting one. Hyundai, of course, are great friends and have been wonderful sponsors over the years. And I say this about Hyundai, they've been at Carlton through a lot more thin than has been a lot than thick.
Yep.
So well done to Hyundai for being such a great sponsor in football to a number of clubs, and particularly in Australian sport. But well done, Hyundai and Fiji Airways.
Yep, great sponsors.
Good stuff. Hey, speaking of Carlton, what a win.
A great win. I'm very happy for their supporters. I'm happy for a number of people who are still at the club. It always makes me think when I watch a club bounce or show their energy and intent, I feel bad for the sack coach, because they must be going, fellas, come on. Like, I wasn't asking for much. And first time they won the pressure rating, I know that's a number that's a bit like hot dogs. We're not sure what goes into it, but it seems great.
Yep.
And you'd be sitting there, Michael Voss, and you go, could you have given me a little bit of that? But at least they responded. The Carlton faithful were up and about.
That's the other thing. A change is as good as a holiday sometimes, and it just doesn't matter. No matter what you do, sometimes if your focus is, if you're Michael Voss, you're going there, sometimes you're over-trying, you're pushing yourself. You don't realise, my analogy is always, it's like my golf shot. It starts off there, but it ends up over there. And sometimes you just need to chip back on and start fresh. And that happens in life, and so I don't think there's, don't worry about Vossi there, but let's look at what Josh Fraser has been able to do. And you could just see up in the crowd, the President, Rob Priestley and Graham Wright and the respective families. And when you're in those situations, which you haven't been, thank goodness, but early days and various stages of Collingwood, when you're under the hammer and there's just nothing coming your way, it is just one of the great things. It's like winning a flag in a lot of ways, those small mercies along the way. So congratulations to Carlton. It was a good win.
Yeah, and I know being around at my son's football, it was good to see a lot of Carlton fans dusted off their beanies and jackets and they put them on, and that went from kids about this big, 6 and 7, to dads and grandparents, and you want something to hang your hat on for at least a week.
Literally a hat.
Yeah, literally, the beanie.
Put the beanie and the hat on. Yeah. Hey, we'll jump forward because that leads into Essendon, who are going the other way at the moment. I saw Rowan Connolly's tweets over the weekend.
Very passionate Essendon man.
Big Essendon man. And I've known Rowan, since we started back in the 80s together. And he gets on Insta a bit these days and he can be a bit demonstrative, but he's a deep thinking and understands the game as well as anybody. Yep. He's a deep thinker. His writing back in the days in the age when he used to go insightful writing was excellent. He was one of the best guys writing, and still continues to be, but certainly when it was his full-time job, he was a ripper. So for him to say that he sat in the crowd at 25,000 crowd at the MCG and just feel that there was almost disdain towards the team in their performance against Fremantle. So let's put a few things in perspective. Fremantle are a gun side.
Yep.
Okay, so
I had them finishing on top at the start.
Yeah, so let's tick that off. But for the Bombers now, it's as much about the perception around them and are they going forward. Because, as you know, sometimes in football clubs, you can do everything right and it doesn't manifest itself on a Saturday afternoon. In fact, it looks the opposite. Where do you read the Bombers at the moment?
Yeah, I think you're talking to, and I agree regarding just on your point about Roko. He writes for ESPN now as well, and I do enjoy reading his articles. You don't want to get to the point as a club where your supporter base is hate watching you.
Yeah.
You know, as in that they sort of feel like they're set up where we've got a win-win. So if we win, it's great. If we lose, geez, I can pick it apart and, this guy's got to go, this guy's no good, and this guy's got to, do this. So you don't ever want to get into that cycle as a football club where the supporters feel like, hey, if I hate watch them, and it means if they lose, well, then I can go, well, sack the coach and get rid of this player, or if they do eventually get a win, it's all rosy. There's some really interesting decisions for the Bombers, and I'm just taking Brad Scott on his word when he's got one of these in front of his face, and he mentioned it again. But blind Freddie, I think he referenced in the post-match that if you can't see our plan, well, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. You know what? If I could offer Brad some advice, just pull it back a touch.
Yeah.
I know he's there and he's frustrated. There's an old saying, Jim, that when the DJ is sick of the song, the public are hearing it for the first time.
Yeah.
And while he lives and breathes it and discusses it every moment of every waking moment, and most of his sleeping ones too, not everyone's doing that. And you've got to bring people along for the ride.
And Brad Scott,
maybe with a smile on their face occasionally.
Yeah, and Brad Scott's, we know both Scotts, and Brad Scott we're talking about, incredibly intelligent people.
Yeah,
very, very intelligent. They're savvy. They've been around the block more.
I've worked with Brad at Collingwood. He was fantastic.
Yeah, so he's sharp mind. He has said in previous stations in AFL world that he doesn't believe in development. And I am paraphrasing that he said, look, list sizes should be smaller because it's not up to me to develop them. Let's just pay the best, and we shouldn't be still trying to, teach them how to play the game. I should be just coaching them to win. But now this narrative that he's got in recent weeks, and he's been at pains to point it out, I coach developing teams and I develop players.
Yeah.
So, okay, you might have changed your philosophy. Okay. So then I'd encourage him to roll the sleeves up in that department.
Yeah.
And you might have to come down from being the head coach to really getting in. And we always reference a senior coach now is like head of a corporation. You're head of course, Jam TV amongst many businesses. When you've got an issue in a department,
you've got to get in.
You've got to be the helicopter. You've got to come down. So come down. Is that guy doing development the right people? Okay. Well, are they doing the right plan? And there's a big difference. So if you've got to go, well, if the plan's right, have we got the right people executing it? If the plan's wrong, let's change the plan.
Just to finish that sentence that Brad Scott used that you quoted accurately, he also, but that was at a time when he was also at the AFL, and we'd have these philosophical discussions about surely we have 35 on the list and they're the elite players, instead of worrying about some 18-year-old who isn't going to make it, who's on the rub-down table instead of your star player, as I famously call them, the bread roll eaters. But his point was also that we should develop a system that has them cherry ripe. Now, you're part of that system these days with what you're doing at Caulfield Grammar, but are we getting that elsewhere? I mean, it's interesting. You go back to the point you make. Ron Barassi used to line them up when he first came in and would say, that's not how you tie your boots up and get it right. You don't put the bow on the top of your foot. You put it inside your boot. And that's in the old days when you used to lace them up and go around the outside and underneath and all that sort of stuff. But even now I see players who have a knot sometimes like that on there. You wonder how they can kick the ball.
It's so funny to say that. I know I just spoke about training with the under-18s. First thing I did was I asked for some electric tape from the physio because they've always got it in their bag. Tied my boots up on the side. Pulled it down there. Got the electric tape round twice because then it's only just the laces.
Yeah, exactly.
Tuck it away from. So I've done that ever since I was a kid. And they were like, "What are you doing there?"
Yeah.
Like, get that out of the way.
Well, Nathan Buckley used to do it with the medical tape. And the other thing to that is it gives you a little bit more of a coarse surface. So the good thing about your laces, if you tie it to the side, is it actually grips the ball, particularly the bar of soap. And as we said last week, now that Grey Nichols have actually bought Sharon, hopefully they're manufactured to a position that we want them to be. It's one bit of equipment in the AFL I've got to get right. I would like the AFL to buy Sharon. But anyway, that's another story. But back to the Bombers. Everyone's going to make a fair bit of the MCG crowd, 25,000, which is fair enough. But I remember, again, when I took over at Collingwood, going there and the crowd and the kids were in old jumpers. You could just see they weren't buying in. They were going along because Dad was dragging them and telling them of tales of, of yore with the great Collingwood Football Club. We're getting our heads belted in every week. And I remember the game we played at the MCG in 2000, which started early that year because of the Olympic Games coming up. And we beat Carlton for the first time in my presidency. And Shane O'Brien kicked a goal at the city end, and half the stand was down because they were doing the rebuild.
Yep.
And Shane O'Brien kicked this goal, and the Collingwood Roar came back for the first time in about 4 or 5 years. And he thought the stand behind him had fallen down. he turned around like that. He couldn't believe it. And the Collingwood Roar comes back. It'll be the same with the Bombers. Their day will come. It's just they're going through some tough times at the moment. And in this game, there's no mercy.
No, not at all.
And so what happens with, can I jump over?
There you go.
Essendon Richmond this week.
Ooh.
Right? So,
does Richmond have enough players?
No, Mick Malloy's going to play apparently.
They're 25 fit players at the moment.
He'll be able to fill the hole, that's for sure.
Come on. You've been waiting for that.
No,
one,
I've been talking to him this morning. He's front of mind, Mick. He's doing great things at the moment. His shows on 7 are going great, and Triple M and everything else. So we love Mickey. He's a great old friend of mine. But so Tigers, they rested a couple of blokes or held them over because of a 5-day break, believe it or not. So they'll get to 24. But I think at the weekend, or certainly this weekend, their VFL team will have no representatives in it.
No.
Having said that, they nearly won. Did you see that?
It took Box Hill pretty much. Was it Jack Dalton maybe who kicked was the winner?
Yeah.
Magnificent work.
Yeah.
But if you can't get a game at Richmond,
we just got to turn up.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like
Adam Uzo might pull the boots on himself, might do what you just did.
Yeah.
But that's a huge game. I mean, for the Tigers, it's one of those ones. You're just playing with house money, aren't you?
Yeah. Well,
roll the dice and just go for it.
How do you make any judgment on Adam Uzo?
Yeah. Well, you don't.
Yeah, I know. But that's my point. Like you can't.
So what about the Bombers? Just stick with the Bombers for a sec. What about the Bombers? Now, Brad Scott did come out and he belted the senior players.
Hmm.
What do? Do you say, righto, we're playing the kids, why don't we play our kids against their kids and make a point?
Yeah, well, they've won one game in a year.
Yeah.
Like in the meantime. So if you go back to that last Dreamtime game, there's been one win. So you know what you've got with those senior players. There comes to a point, and he hasn't had the ultimate success, but I'll just use Sam Mitchell for an example. When he came in and he had Mitchell and O'Meara. Now, a lot of people got stuck into him, but he saw the numbers anyway. He goes, I know what I'm getting from Mitchell and O'Meara, and it's not taking me that way.
Yeah.
And people go, you got rid of two absolute guns, which they are, and they both went on. O'Meara at Freo, Mitchell went on, did really well at Collingwood. But for Hawthorn at that time, it's like, well, it's actually not helping us in the long term. Like, those two will still dominate.
Yeah.
I think he's got to have a few thoughts about some of those Essendon players. One, I know what they give me.
Mm.
Like,
just one to finish on. What we did see, though, is what can be coming like a freight train for the AFL with teams like Carlton, Essendon, Richmond. West Coast showed a bit of on the weekend. You saw what happens. You saw the renaissance of their crowd, and they'll come over for the game against Collingwood, and Pendle's a big game. They'll be coming over wanting to spoil the party. And I heard my Xander McGuire say this morning on the radio that it was Harley Reid's 50th game. Do they share a banner?
Well, it's Dan Houston's 200th as well.
Is it? Yeah, we're going to have 201. Stay out of the way, Dan. But but we did see, now it was as cold and wet a day as you get in Melbourne.
Yep.
At the MCG. It's interesting that you had St Kilda home game at Marvel up against Richmond, who don't go to Marvel, love come the MCG, have a lot of 18 game seats sold, etc. Whether that game maybe, if we had a bit more flexibility.
Are you saying we've had a fixturing issue this year?
No, that one. No, that's being hyper sensitive to it. I mean, what do you get? Maybe. I mean, you wouldn't change it because you got 25 there. You can get walk-ups. You can get all the things happening there. If you went down to Marvel, you might not got 25. You might have got 30 on your best day because it's got a roof. But no, it's important for the Bombers to keep the faith.
Yep.
The supporters have been unbelievably great, but it's a flare going up. If you're running a business, not that it's about turning into a marketing caper, but there needs to be some good look at what's going on. And I mentioned a long time ago, Jim, and I said on Footy Classified, and as usual, everyone howls you down, and it might not have any veracity. But I did say that as Tasmania continues to push out, don't waste the crisis. They're going beautifully in the VFL. They're building something great. 1 year different, 2 year different. Is it really going to make that much of an impact? If you fixed up the competition we've got. Because what we don't want to do is have 4 teams who are cooked for the next number of years and turn that into 5.
Well, let's keep talking about Tassie. You were strong on the concerns about Tassie going ahead without a stadium. Sam McClure's article, which was a very good read, he reported on the weekend that he has spoken to 10
hardback
AFL
edition
clubs.
of what I said on Footy Classified a few weeks ago.
What's that?
The hardback edition of what I said on Footy
The
Classified.
hardback edition?
Yeah. Yeah.
8 of the 10.
No, that's not having a go at Sam, but it's exactly what I said.
Yeah.
And you know why? I don't make these things up, Jim.
No.
When we get on here, I read sometimes the comments and people go off. I'm reporting what's been going on in the deepest, darkest recesses of football. So when I say some senior AFL officials are looking at Tasmania and thinking, well, there's a few issues we still need to get to. On our best day, we'd love them to come in here, but that's not going to be our best day. So the whole idea of life is being able to adapt.
Well, the key point that Sam and yourself have been making, this decision is going to have to be middle of next month.
Well, Sam's connected into Tasmania because his family's Tasmanian, but he's a good reporter, so he's probably talking to the same people I am.
But we're talking 4 weeks. We need to have an understanding because
but this
the
is what
draft
happens
is coming up.
But mate, this is what happens when everyone's Pollyanna, when everyone just wants to do a press release and not face the facts. What has changed in the last 2 years, other than the fact that they said, "Yeah, we'll go on with it"? I haven't seen one spade in the ground. I haven't seen the full scope.
I want to know who's going to make up the shortfall, and I'm going to say conservatively, they are $700 million off.
Yeah, you're saying conservatively. I think the first night we ever announced that this was going on, when I did the story, remember we did it on Footy Classified, and I said it's got to have a roof and all that type of thing. They said the stadium's going to cost $750.
It's never.
But $750, that's what the roof costs.
But even conservatively, but even now at 1.5, and Tassie, this is not me hating at you. I'm just talking about the...
Not $750 for a roof, by the way, but you know what I'm saying? $750. At that stage, I said there'll be no change out of 1.75, and there's no change out of 2.5, 2 now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. There is definitely a 2 in front of it and going north. Yeah. And we spoke about this on 3AW, and I had someone who's very well connected politically and business and knows construction said, you are bang on. There is nothing under 2. Final cost, by the time you hand the keys over, you only open the front door. Richard, we'll go back to the vault in due course and just see how far wrong we are. And I'm not a building expert, but, you know, I do live in this planet. You know, has anyone done a renovation? But that's not me saying that
anyone
I don't
watched
want to build.
tunnel being built? No, I'm all in.
That's not saying build.
But my point is this. As soon as you say something that is conceived to be...
you're a hater.
Not being a cheer squad member... You're a hater. No, I went down. I think the idea of Tasmania in the competition is absolutely great. I love what's going on with the VFL. What I'd love to see in the interim of all that is build up, connect up the whole of the Tasmania, which has still got divisions, put the training facilities in, bring the kids through, turn your VFL team into something fantastic, continue to get to a position where you have 5 players a year, 6 players a year who are being drafted into the AFL competition. And you know what? Fatten them up for when they come in, so they're 22, 23, so you've got something to drag back to. Build the infrastructure you need then there for people to come down, which is universities generally.
Yeah, we've spoken about...
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's a big play, but that's building a state.
Yeah.
That is the celebration of everything.
Yeah, we've spoken about this, our idea of, call it Build Tas.
Yeah.
Is that you actually get an influx of young people, their purchasing power can go further, house and land packages. Yep. You can solve the hospital issue because they do need a hospital. You can bring the university involved because they sit on some of the most beautiful land you've seen there at Sandy Bay.
Totally.
You connect north to south. And so the stadium should have been the jewel in the crown of a part of a bigger play.
Your point, and we're in vigorous agreement here, is that we're all barracking for Tasmania to be successful and for the competition not to get slaughtered in the process. It's a really delicate time in world sport at the moment. as far as TV rights and where it's going. And Australia's behind on all that. We have the anti-siphoning, which is great for watching TV, and I'm all for it, but it's not so great if you're trying to sell it. You've got at the moment in the NFL, Roger Goodell is being asked the questions, how much can he squeeze? The Melbourne game for the National Football League, San Francisco 49ers, LA Rams, will be on Netflix. He's been able to carve out another position. The AFL are putting extra games on, two extra finals this year, 4 teams, extra week. Is anyone paying for that?
No. Not at the moment. Not additionally.
And Gather Round has become another super round. Should that be sold separately? I mean, there's all these discussions, Jim, that we have to have, and you can do it without. So I think the problem is if you say anything that's a bit contrary to anyone thinks you're attacking. Michael Warner wrote another story, putting my name in it, saying I'm going after, the chair of the AFL or something else. No, we can actually have adult conversations, and some people have got expertise in some areas, and sometimes you haven't. So I just think that we've got to be very careful on that. On the positive, Melbourne.
Oh, they're fun to watch. They're exciting. You hear the players talk about the impact that Stephen King's had, and again, by pumping up Stephen King, it's not poo-pooing Simon Goodwin's reign at Melbourne because they won a premiership and were very successful.
It came to an end.
Yep.
His time finished.
Correct.
His message wasn't going through. They had issues around the place. They needed, it's exactly what we said at the start of this show. Sometimes you just need to say enough.
Yep, it's been great. It's not you, it's me, this sort of stuff.
That's it.
And he's got the players buying in.
And he's doing a pretty good job up in Sydney.
Yeah.
Simon Goodwin.
Absolutely.
No knock on him. He's a premiership coach. He's repositioned himself up in Sydney. He's rebuilt his life with his partner up there, and he's coaching a midfield that's on top of the ladder. Seems to be a pretty good result for everyone.
Yeah, can't argue with any of that.
Yeah.
But these are they've got an energy about them. They turn on TV where if you're you're not a Melbourne fan,
you like watching them.
Hey, they're good. I like the way they're playing.
Yep.
And got some players who have got a bit of, I guess, marketability about them. I guess the way you see them, Tholstrop looks fun. The Picketts look fun. I like Turner behind the footy, and of course Max Gawn leading the charge. Sparrow, you like Sparrow?
I like Sparrow. Yeah, I've always.
They got some guys that are.
But see what happens?
To watch.
Sparrow gets a go because they get the other blokes out.
Yep.
They go. He comes in. Suddenly it's all happening. But that's the theme of the day with coaches. I think Stephen King has been able to do that. Clearly Josh Fraser had the sugar hit on the weekend. It's an interesting time, isn't it?
Yeah, and can I just use a bit of that theme? And we speak of Carlton will need to do it. Clearly they've got good people, and Essendon need to do it. And it's just from my experience at the Giants, being the football director, your football committee, you step into the room and you thrash it all out. You leave. I mean, it's in a nice way. You need leave your feelings outside the door, because to have good, robust debate so you don't have any groupthink. And you and I can disagree and we can argue about it and we can choose it. But when we leave the room, we're unified. So that's the important thing for Carlton, with obviously Graham Wright, Greg Williams, who's the football director, and Chris Davies, because obviously they've got no list manager, recruiting manager or coach.
Yeah, but they've got enough guys there who can fill that at the moment.
But just those three in particular. Yeah. Right, what does it look like? What are we doing? And we, debate it and out. Same with Essendon to be obviously the president. Brad, I don't know who their nominated football director is, because I know Solomon came off the board to be an assistant coach. And, right, this is the plan. But we got to thrash it out, and we get rid of all the, I don't believe what you're doing, and I don't believe what you're doing. Get that all done. Where are we going? Just
to finish on that, though, I think Brad needs to just bring people with him. The press conferences, use it as your friend.
Salesman.
Don't be competitive. Don't have to sell, just be honest. And he's I'm not saying he's not honest, but be honest and get your pitch right. More than ever, you've got to actually bring people through. And again, I go back to my days. As soon as Mick Malthouse came into the place, he gave a speech one day to the players pre-season when the first year he was there. And I just turned on my heel and thought, all right, I don't have to worry about them anymore. I'll go and find some money and rebuild the place and work with other people. And him and Neil Balme was there at that stage, and Greg Swan was the CEO, and we had the right people in place. Now, we finished second last that year. Went second last. But people believed. Next year we finished ninth. Next year we're in the grand final. So it can turn, but you've got to get the right people. But Mick brought everybody along on the ride.
Yep.
And you could see it. You went on a Saturday and he went, righto. I remember getting up at a president's lunch and saying, it's going to be a tough afternoon. We always go in, wanting to win, but it's going to be a tough day today. But there's a young kid, Chris Tarrant, number 20. Go and take your kid's jumper down to the merchandise store. Put number 20 on his back. He'll be here. He'll give you highlights. He'll be an absolute ripper for us. And you just got to sell it. And he went out, and I think he took one of the great marks that day as well. Oh, beauty. Got flogged by about 15 goals, but it gave us something. They remembered that.
Yeah,
that's the point. They remembered that. They went out and looked for him. Where's number 20? Geez, he's only a kid. And that was the beginning of it. One quick one. Hawthorn have lost their last 3 matches, but the thing that will stop any train. Day, Nash, Chol, Gunston, Brass, all out at the moment.
Yeah. The good news for Hawthorn, Will Day will play in the VFL.
Yep.
They shouldn't rush him, which they won't. Clubs are too smart. Yeah, Barras was in unbelievable form as well. So he was as dominant as ever. And we know Gunston's in unbelievable form.
Yeah.
Look, probably where they...
Which means sort of older players, it's a good thing to rest them. Yeah. I'm not going to get sucked into this Pendlebury stuff. Yeah. So do you think that Collingwood erred in resting him in the preliminary final last year when he had an injury that he couldn't play?
Yeah, well, if he was injured and can't play, it's pretty obvious.
Did you hear? You wouldn't have seen it probably, but Channel 7 did a really good feature on him on their weekend on, when was it? Friday night, when Collingwood Sydney was on. They played it at halftime, following him around.
Oh, yeah, I saw bits of that.
Yeah, and you see that he was...
Oh, is that like a day in the life of Scott Pendlebury where he gets his coffee?
Where he made the point that for the first time in his career, this year's had to get his ankles and his feet and his Achilles taped because he's got issues. So anyway, leave that alone. If anybody complains. But the other one that I just want to throw in there is a significant portion of funds raised going to My Room charity.
Yep.
Now, we do the My Room for Margaret Zeta, grand final night on Channel 9, so we're involved. Pendles has been a very quiet but influential supporter, and there is a fair amount of dough going that way. So a lot of people have tried to, make the point that he was putting some in his pocket. I'll make the point that he's played for unders for a long time, Scott Pendlebury. And, yep, if the next person who breaks that record, they can wear a gold number as well and they can make some money, good on them.
Yep.
Are we going to talk about him at any stage, or is that later in the week? Later in the week. Might do that Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you get to pour your heart out.
Oh, yeah. Well, I love him.
Do you love him more or less than Nathan Buckley?
No, don't separate your family.
Yeah.
I saw Bucks yesterday.
Yes.
You know what? I saw
you
Bucks.
just answered it then.
I saw Bucks yesterday, and his son had a bloody Geelong tracksuit top on.
Yeah, good lad.
Oh, I reckon there were some harsh words.
Did you cut him out of the will with that?
I did, yeah. Gave it to him. I know, Pendles, probably Pendles and I now have we've got a really strong relationship over the journey, and it's not one like Swanee and I knew each other sort of from background and Broadie, and I still go out for dinner with Daisy and Dids and Pete Shaw. I ran into them the other night at dinner. They're sitting on the next table. It was just fantastic and great friends, and Luke Ball and all those guys from 2010, and Maxie, and then going back earlier when I run into guys like Shane Wakeland and Jimmy Clement and all those guys. I've left out millions of them, but they're just really good blokes. No, I do. You love them all. Yeah. But obviously, being involved with Pendles and, rang him the first when he got picked and, went in and shook his hand and said, you're the new, captain of the Collingwood Football Club. I get really emotional when I do those things. It really means something and at a Collingwood, it's the players have a vote and the coaches make a recommendation, but unless it's ratified by the board, it doesn't happen. And so, not that we ever overruled one, but it was just wonderful to be able to go in and see him. And then he became the longest serving captain in the history of the Collingwood Footy Club. So, unbelievable. So we'll talk about him on Wednesday. I don't want to talk about him too much now, unless you want to continue.
No.
GWS, your old mob. Wow. That was what GWS to a degree, but West Coast, I saw them when they got dumped by Richmond the other week. I thought, oh, geez, have they hit the wall? But old Harley Reid and a few of the young blokes.
We said this when we did our tips.
Dersma, can he play?
Oh, he's going to be a super player. He's beautiful build too for football, long, languid.
Yeah.
Well, we said this when we were doing their tips. We wouldn't put it past West Coast beating the Giants, even when they've been pox for so long.
Yeah.
They've rolled the Giants over there. West Coast, massive positive pressure, great for their crowd who get behind it. Harley Reid was magnificent. Williams in the ruck was really good. They've got some goers in that side, and it was good for Minnie McQualter. On the Giants, I'm a little worried about where they're going and where they're at, and it's a number of issues, and I don't want to take too long, but don't undersell how big of a loss Dave Matthews will be, the CEO of the Giants.
My word.
At a time when their club might be in a bit of transition and you need someone working every single corporate room, working every single government angle, game development.
And he's good. He's aggressive. He gets into the AFL behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You know, he rings, he lobbies, he does a lot of work.
Yeah.
And all that sort of. He's done a great job.
So
absolutely.
If that coincides with the Giants doing a little bit of a reset, because they've got a number of absolute champions, that club, who are getting towards the end. Well, the end's a lot closer.
Yeah. Toby Green at Geelong's the one that worries, mate.
Yeah, which he didn't quite shut down as well. You know,
shut down.
Yeah. Well, Whitfield.
What's the opposite of shutting down? Opening the floodgates.
Yeah. Whitfield. These are all been great players. Whitfield, Canelio, Kelly is all getting closer to the end.
Yeah.
It's an interesting space. And, you know, Craig Drummond highlighted the AFL have been pretty average in their support. We're going to game development there. It's going to be some big decisions. I'm not saying all negative, but just they need to make some right decisions.
But that's
Giants and AFL.
That's the footy. That's what happens. You're either in contention or you're rebuilding.
No. I get that, but it's a bit different from being in contention and rebuild if you're here in Victoria or South Australia. I'm
with you. I know, but guess what? That's what a national comp is. But I'm with you. I agree with you. I've always said there has to be a bit of horses for courses and all this sort of stuff. But what ends up happening is, you know, you get a situation where, and I'll go back so we don't pick any new fights. Go back to 2000 and 2001, where the absolute obsession with getting Sydney and Brisbane up and going, it skewed the competition. Now, they played it beautifully. Brisbane won 3, Sydney in those great grand finals against the West Coast Eagles, and it was wonderful for the game. So at the end of it, you go, yeah, that was great for that. But it did, slaughter a few clubs down here and around the place. I mean, Port Adelaide nearly went out of business at the same time. People forget that. Port Adelaide with the covers on the seats, but they were gone. There was a meeting that was held, and it seriously came up that we put a line through Port Adelaide. And luckily, Wiser Head prevailed, and we didn't. But we being the presidents and the commission, by the way. So, yeah, it is. But that's why I have an AFL. That's their job, an AFL commission.
No, just some big decisions.
Yep. Let's go to the medal. The Jamal medal's got Bailey Smith, Brodie Grundy, Harley Reid. Brodie, who I did send a message to, congratulations, because he's one of my lads who I'm very close to. He's one of the Ripper blokes. I thought the Lizard.
Yeah,
I thought the Lizard was. I thought he was the bloke who kept them in it when the Pies were pantsing them. He's a good player.
He's a good player, the Liz. I'll go to my votes. I've got Bailey Smith here as 1, but it should be actually 2 votes. So I just need Richard to adjust that.
2.
Yeah. So Butters, Peatling, Dylan Moore from the Hawks, and Max Hall, who I love as a player from the Saints, all get 1 vote.
Yep.
Bailey Smith, as I mentioned, Noah Anderson, Rankin Dawson, Big Max Gorn, Disco Legs Turner, Carroll from the Blues, Florent, Big Prancing Pony. That was funny, the byplay between
It was unbelievable.
After he kicked his 4th, it flashed to the crowd, and we always have a laugh with giving the bird. And Patrick Voss is showing the jumper, an Essendon fan just gave the bird. Would you just piss off like this? Yeah. It was so good, the byplay.
I think there was a universal bird at that stage to anyone in the universe.
Not this bloke again. Roby, the Bombers have got a beauty there.
He's a beauty.
And Hugo Garcia is doing a great job. Some people might remember Hugo Garcia, but he was the one where Ross Lyon made a beeline from the coach's box, and he sought him out on the bench and gave him one of the great bakes of all time. Since then, he's been playing some great footy, takes the opposition's best.
Some full and frank appraisal sometimes work.
Full and frank appraisal.
It does,
I like that. 3 votes. Sean Manor, 30 and 5 gets you 3. Tom Stewart, your boy Brodie Grundy, the Lizard King, Nick Blakey. Johnny Noble gets 3 votes.
Yeah.
He used the ball at about 95% as well. And Paddy Cripps, a good skipper's game. Does the Bailey Smith, does he come onto the leaderboard? No, he doesn't. So our leaderboard is Big Max on 11, Cozzy on 12, the golden child of yours, Nick Dacos, and Marcus Bontempelli on 18.
Good on you, mate. We'll catch you on Wednesday. If you've got something you'd like to bring up for us, get online now, Eddie and Jimmy at tapt, T-A-P-T, media.com.au. And make sure you follow us on Instagram and everywhere else. Just look up Eddie and Jimmy. And
that's it.
Thanks for being part of it. Good on, Jim.
Thanks,
Enjoyed it as always. See you Wednesday.